All right, so here's an example of who, what, population of interest, and our categorical versus quantitative units. So people who get lost in the desert, mountains, or woods often seem to wander in circles rather than walk in straight lines. To see whether people naturally walk in circles, in the absence of visual clues, a researcher tests 29 people on a football field, one at a time. They're stood at the center of one goal line, so one end of the football field. They're blindfolded so that they can't see, and they're told to try to walk to the other goal line, basically, right, in a straight line, 100 yards from one end of the football field to the other. He recorded each individual's sex, height, handedness, the number of yards each was able to walk before going out of bounds, and with whether each wandered off the course to the left or to the right. No one made it all the way to the far end of the field without crossing one of the sidelines. All right, so who is the who, the what, and the population of interest? In this question, you can pause here and try to go back and answer it for yourself. The who, in this case, are the 29 volunteers, right, that the researcher conducted this experiment on. Remember, the who is our sample that we collect the data from. The what, there were quite a few things, right, that were collected, quite a few variables. The researcher collected the sex, the height, should be a comma there, the handedness, the distance walked, and the sideline crossed, right, either left or right. And our population of interest is all people who get lost in the desert, mountains, or woods. And this comes from the very first part of our question, right? People who get lost in the desert, mountains, or woods often seem to wander in circles rather than in straight lines. To see whether people naturally walk in circles in the absence of visual cues, and so on, right? So the population of interest could be all people, right? If all people naturally walk in circles, but we are given this little piece here, right? People who get lost in desert, mountains, or woods are the ones who often seem to wander in circles. Okay, so I'd probably take either answer there. You could make a case that either of these is the population of interest. Maybe it's all people, or maybe it's specifically people who get lost in desert, mountains, or woods. All right, categorical versus quantitative. Pause here and try to answer each of these categories and whether they are categorical and quantitative, and if they are quantitative, include their units of measure if they are included. So sex is going to be a categorical variable, right? There's no units associated with this, right? There's a finite number of categories that sex can fall into, right? Male or female. Height is quantitative. The units here weren't specified, right? But think of heights, height, you would typically measure this as maybe in feet or maybe in inches, right? Somebody could be 60 inches tall specifically, they could be 54 inches, they could be 54.25 inches. um, and so on. If you measured it in feet, right, they could be 5.1 feet tall, they could be 5.5 feet tall, and so on. Handedness is going to be categorical, right? There are no units, but you can basically either be left or right-handed, right? So two distinct categories there. The distance walked is going to be quantitative, and this was given in yards, right? The researcher measured the number of yards that each person walked before they crossed a sideline, right? And then the sideline you crossed, it was either the left side of the field or the right side of the field, right? So this would be, again, categorical. You either crossed out on the left or the right side. First, you couldn't have crossed on both, right? So those are two distinct groups.